Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, well, first of all, if you're a longtime listener, you've seen our guest on here before. We have Jada back on the podcast. See, I get tongue-tied and twisted every damn time. So Jada back on the podcast. But yeah, she's coming on to give us an update on what she's been up to and yeah, just basically just to talk fitness. And I saw her on a different podcast and I was like, okay, it's been a while since we've had her back on, so we need to definitely have her. And she wasn't in contest shape the last time too, so now we can really see, how good she really does look now, at least. But again, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Why don't you let us know what the weather's like in your neck of the woods? It's my all-time go-to first question for every guest.
Well, it was raining, but at least that stopped. So it's just overcast for now.
We just got done with the downpour ourselves, but it looks like it's going to be continuing on all throughout the day, which, I mean, hey, it's better than snow, at least. I'll take it with that because, I got about a month left to enjoy what little I can of being outdoors before, it hits, the negatives. So, good God. But, I mean, obviously we can see, you look totally different than the last time we talked to you. You're in your preps. You're in your, competition season. What has this last year been like since we talked to you?
Not how I expected. Not coming from me though. I did my part. I brought what I expected to bring. I did what I hoped to do, and everything else was out of my control. So it is what it is. Um, but yeah, so 2 shows that I did, I brought a much better package for the second one, like hands down, but it was not rewarded.
That's the sport for you. I mean, it all just goes down to that. But I mean, did you change things up at all this year with your prep or with your diet? Were there any new changes that you introduced to make things different?
What, from going from physique to bodybuilding?
Well, yeah, well, yeah, like, and then like you might change up your training year to year because like you don't want your body to just get used to the same workouts and the same nutrition all the time, all year round. People like to change things up. Did you do that at all?
It really doesn't, because going in and out of season, off season to on season, I mean, but people can't always veer too off of what it takes to come in shape. So someone to say I did something totally different, no, no, it's a lie. What you did was you did things longer, you did things more stricter, and you just you everything had to be amplified more. That's
Which
all.
I like her being honest because sometimes when I do have guests on, they're like, "Yeah, I changed things up completely." I was like, "No, you didn't." I mean, if you were to change things up absolutely completely, so yeah, I appreciate that answer at least because
I didn't eat as much chicken and I ate more fish. Okay.
hey, that's good enough. That's good enough for me right there. That's a change enough as it is. I mean, going from that at least.
Some change, but you have to go about it still the same. Obviously, in my off season, I had some surgeries I had to deal with, but then what I just tried to do was just keep lifting as heavy as I could so that I could maintain sizable for the new division, which in fact we did increase by 7 to 8 pounds of muscle. So, because from what I was weighing at my last best show last year versus my best package this year was an 8 pound difference. So we always did something.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and we can tell right here. And with those 8 pounds, what do you think is one body part that you improved on most over the last year?
Honestly, I think a lot of it was probably in my hamstring, quads, back, and a little bit of shoulders, I think.
Well, we can see shoulders. Good God, I was gonna say we might need a bigger screen basically to get you to fit in the whole thing. So, jeez, that good God, everyone. That's just we'll save that for later so everyone doesn't get embarrassed and then just all of a sudden stops listening to the podcast right in here. We got to at least keep them in there for a little bit. But yeah, I mean that is just awesome. And I mean going into these shows, obviously this has been completely different year really for bodybuilding since last year was kind of everything that went on last year. What was just that overall experience? Was it different for you getting ready for a show than it has been before, just with all the weird things that people couldn't control really going on?
This year to me wasn't really much different with last year. The only difference was is I was late in the season because my surgeries kind of made me lose some weeks. But everything was for the most part the same. It's just that I had to train a smidge harder, restrict things a little bit more, and do things a little longer. I mean, it was pretty much still the same. Obviously, my posing switched up a teeny bit. and I had to phase into the bodybuilder poses, which wasn't that a whole lot more different than what I'd already been doing, except for the two newer poses, which are the front and back lat spread. But who doesn't play around with those, even as a female physique? You kind of like taper those in just for fun. You don't get to show them on stage, but you know, every year I always go up in size regardless. So I knew switching from physique to bodybuilding wasn't going to be as much as a challenge because I knew that each year of competing, I would put on 2 to 3 pounds extra. So I was like, well, we just need to double or triple that number. So
If you're going up 2 to 3 pounds every year, I want to see what you look like in 10 years. Good God, but
I believe there's a cap. I believe that the body does reach a cap. I don't know where mine is yet because of my age. I still might have another 3, 4 years to grow. It's very possible before I start to notice a plateau. And then you're like in a plateau before you start going back down again. So I'm thinking like I might have a few more years still.
yeah.
And I do expect that next season, um, I'll probably add another 3 pounds to my overall package. I would think.
What was the motivation between going from physique to bodybuilding? Was it just they were telling you were getting too big, or was it just you felt like you wanted to make a change? Or
Yeah, it was both of those. I was being told by certain judges that I no longer fit the criteria of women's physique, that I was just parts of me were too big. And I had other judges that didn't really have a say, and I had other judges that said, "No, you just need to diet down more and get more stringy," which my body doesn't want to do that. I have round muscle bellies. I It's very hard for me to get uh and also my hip structure and my entire, I want to say, my structure of my skeletal structure is only going to allow my body to come in so lean looking. And then at that point you're just asking for me to like start chipping bones off, which obviously I can't do. So hearing from amazing people like Dennis James and Linda Murray and other pros that have, really made a name for themselves in the industry, and certain judges made me feel like that it was the right thing to do to move up to the next. Because I thought I was physique for a while too, until I would start looking at pictures of me next to these girls in the lineup, and I'm like, no wonder they don't compare me hardly. No wonder I'm only getting second call outs. How are they going to compare me? Like I don't like I stand out like a sore thumb. Like I was bigger in every area than these girls. So it just didn't it wasn't working. It wasn't working. So cuz not only was I bigger in muscle development, but I was taller too. So like just wasn't
we
working.
had the same exact conversation last time where you said like, yeah, you're like 5'7", and yeah, if you're basically over 5'3" or whatever as a female bodybuilder, I mean, you're considered super tall. So yeah, I've had a couple of 6-footers on here, and I was like, why do you even compete? Because it's literally like you're not even gonna. I mean, it's just the height thing is really just something that isn't really talked about. But yeah, I mean, added with the muscle density too. I mean, yeah, with physique, and I mean, even though physique was getting harder and harder, yeah, you definitely have more of the bodybuilder look. But did it change at all, sort of the mentality of this sport sort of going into bodybuilding, knowing that, like you said, you had to put on more size, and but you knew that you probably could have, but what was the whole mental adjustment like going from that division? Because it's really, you're competing with the big girls now, really. It's the real.
I knew I would line up with the way they had been judging bodybuilding lately. They wanted a like an in between size. I thought that that's what they would stick to. So physically it was fine. I knew the body would adjust. I think the toughest part was the industry going to accept my changes? Were they going to accept me as a bodybuilder? Which, not to be negative, it didn't really look like that happened this year, did it? So I think that was the biggest concern, the biggest mental, like, yeah, challenge. So, but the thing is, I did the best I could. And at the end of the day, guess who was happy with everything that I did? Guess who made the comments? Guess who vouched for me about my shows? It was the fans, it was the followers, it's the people that love the sport. The people that know I exist and know who I am, they all felt that I did a good job with bringing in a bodybuilding package this year. And to me, that's what matters more because the people speak the truth and there's no biasity. Well, there could be, but there's no political play in that. They don't have to like me as a bodybuilder. They don't have to follow me. They don't have to do any of that, but they choose to because that's what they want to do. And they see with their own eyes. And so if I become the people's choice, that's better for me.
Oh, absolutely. And
Because supporting this sport, right? That's who watches and loves and follows and does all of this, you know?
yeah, 100. And I mean, I'm supposed to be unbiased, but I did look at some photos from the shows, and you did bring an amazing package. So I don't know, what was the feedback that they gave you?
Oh God, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently my arms are underdeveloped. My back
Give
needs
us a
more
front,
work.
double buy. Let's see how underdeveloped they are. Okay, yeah, that's underdeveloped. Jesus Christ.
And apparently, I need work on my back and my shoulders, and my conditioning was off by 5 to 8%.
Okay, that was just like top 5 biceps we've ever had on this show, everyone. So I don't know what these judges are saying with that. So I don't.
Say something because the judges have to do what they're asked to do, and it was their. I don't want to talk judges. They do what they have to do. They have to. They have to do. They have to play the game. They have to. That was the last qualifier right before Rising Phoenix. They had to put girls up there that had been on the Olympia stage. I know what was going on. you know, those girls, there's 3 or 4 of them, getting ready to get on Wings of Strength's Rising Phoenix and then go from there. They needed to do the Olympia. So, um, I'm up and comer. I'm going to have to ride on the back burner for a little while.
That's yeah, and unfortunately, yeah, that's what it seems with a lot of athletes too as well. That they really just, yeah, you got to wait your turn. Really, it seems with a lot of these sports. But I mean, how important was that to you? Also, though, getting that positive feedback from the fans, because like if you would have gotten the results that you had and then had negative feedback from the fans, I mean, that would make things so much worse. But knowing that like there are people that really said like, wow, you were amazing, you should have done better than what they
Yeah.
did.
Right. Then, yeah, if that had been the case, then I would have been like, okay, I am nuts. I am crazy. I am delusional. I am seeing things. But that was one of the reasons why I wanted to post one of those pictures and the comparisons for that last show for them to see where they place certain girls and where they place me. Because I wanted the feedback from the fans. I wanted to see, do you guys see what I'm seeing or am I crazy? So that's the reason. Yeah, that's the reason I did that. So, and it turns out we're all not crazy. It's just this year, it just wasn't my year. It just wasn't my turn. That's all.
So, what are you looking forward to right now? Are you just going into an off season right now, or where are you at currently?
So one more show for fun, because this show it's not for money, and it's obviously not a qualification at the moment for next year's Olympia or anything like that. So I'm just so used to doing at least 3 shows a year, and I didn't want to come out of prep because right around Savannah was right when I was getting where I wanted to be, where I knew I could be, and I was happy with that, and I didn't want to end it like that fast, like be done. So I made a decision that so I won't be going to the Olympia, but I'll be doing another show around that time. So that's kind of fun.
I mean, yeah, and just even, I mean, like I've said this a million times, just stepping on stage. I mean, that takes so much hard work and dedication that just that you're doing that, even around the Olympia, that's awesome because yeah, I mean, obviously with all the hard work that you put in, you need to at least go on a stage for something. But what has your relationship with cardio been like this last year? Because obviously when you're putting on weight, I mean, things might be a little bit different than it was last year.
I had to do maybe a smidge more, meaning like just increments of added to my time, my regular time by maybe 5 minutes more. Also, I started cardio a little earlier in the year, so more of a long, elongated cardio stretch with a slight bit of added time. I also did something differently this year coming into Tampa and then into Savannah, where I would take 10 minutes after cardio to work on a specific part. And a lot of times, because I was still fasted at the time, I would either pick glutes or abs to work on for 10 minutes, which added to my regular workouts of those things anyway. So I'm just putting more emphasis on it, you know?
You really thought you needed more work on your abs because that's one of your best features, everyone.
Well, yes, and I need to keep it that way, even though some people thought in the judging platform at that specific show, this is not a knock on Tampa. I did not get feedback it was a totally let me just so you know, the Savannah show versus the Tampa show, completely different judging platform. The Savannah show, there was only one judge that had ever judged me before. The rest of them never judged me. But I did not get feedback from Tampa because those guys know me and I know what they would have told me because they're right. I needed to up my conditioning. I needed to be way more conditioned at Tampa and I knew this. I knew it going in. I went to do Tampa because I had to do a show before Savannah. I have to do that warm up show. I have to do it. And I was like, I know I'm not bringing my best at Tampa and that sucks, but I need to do the show. But the funny thing is, I still placed the exact same. So, but I trust the judgment of judges like Steve and Tyler and Bill, and they've all seen me, and I know what they would have told me, and I didn't want to waste their time, because I know they would have been like, "You need to do this, you need to do that," and I knew this, right? So I was gonna just go ahead and get that done. Now, what I would like to do is maybe send them the pictures from the show they saw me, and then send them the pictures from Savannah and see what they say. I would love to hear that. So I might actually email them and because I would like them to see the difference. I would like them to see that I did make progression because that was the whole point, from doing Tampa to that show, 4 weeks progression. I would like them to see that I made some progression.
Absolutely, and if you do that, let me know what they say, basically, because I'd love to hear what they say then, because yeah, that is. But one thing that I also loved, I was going through your profile, and you made a post about, obviously there's been some, deaths in the sport this year, and it's really shined a light on, the extremes that sometimes happen in this sport, and you shared what's, I think with every bodybuilder that's really a pro in any level, has gone through something like that, where because this is a sport where, I mean, it's like it's not normal for people to look like that, so you're gonna have to, go to extremes with this sport. But what has been your reaction to, everything that's been going on? Because it seems like it has been giving more attention to some of the extremes that happen in the sport, and maybe shining a light on, whether or not to do, certain things. But what has your whole opinion been on, or vibe really been from this whole last year, really, of what's been with this raised awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I've always known that the sport had been turning to a very risky, kind of more dangerous extremity. And when you're competing the way we do, people are going to do whatever it takes to try to get that conditioning because that's what's getting pulled into the top, 4 and 5 call out, top six, whatever, and winning shows. So it is a dangerous thing. It is a complex. It is a situation that you're facing a dilemma. Am I going to risk my health? Now, I've never been one to deal with diuretics. So I can't say too much on that. I honestly, when I heard some of the interviews about when this all came out, the people that were coming out and talking, I was actually blown away by the amount of diuretics being used. I did not know that women were doing this. And then I was like, oh, so that's how they're coming in bone dry. Okay, I get it. I did not know. It's something that I refuse to do. I will not put myself at risk like that. I can't. So it is very unfortunate, and I hope that we can find a better way to do it. But I think it's still it's gonna come back to coaches and clients working together and saying, this is what we're not going to present on stage to keep it safe. We can't go cross this line because that's the only thing that's going to stop it. Because if you keep bringing that kind of conditioning, the judges are still going to have to pick it because it's going to be what looks best in the lineup. And what do they have to do? They have to judge what's in front of them. Okay, so it would have to be the coaches and the clients saying and the competitors saying we need to bring it down a notch, all of us. you know
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I was almost as shocked as you when I heard about the diuretics. And the thing is, the most of the people I've talked to, it doesn't really help you that much, the diuretics. I mean, it does so much more harm to you than it does really good. So that's one thing. And again, just like I say with everything that we talk about on this podcast, you do whatever you want, but take precaution. At least do your make have some knowledge and do some background on anything before you start. Because I've heard so many unfortunate stories of people who just blindly follow their coaches and don't even ask questions about it, and then next thing you know, they're dealing with a lot of things later in life. So just do your research. That's the best piece of advice I could really give anyone.
Yeah. Like I have a client, he's doing an amateur show right here in Columbus, Ohio this weekend, and we're just going to do it the natural way. Like I'm going to have him drink a lot of water until 2 days leading up, and we're going to do a dramatic hard water cut naturally. I'm probably just going to have him take dandelion leaf pills, and that's it. I'm probably not going to have him do anything else. No diazide, no aldactone, nothing. You
What is
know,
it?
because
What is a dandelion leaf pill? I've never heard of that before.
dandelion root or leaf helps to excrete water naturally. It's like a natural water diuretic, just like coffee is, just like green tea, same thing. But you can take it more concentrated in a pill form
Oh,
and without chemically forcing it out like the diazides and all the stuff that we were hearing about. So yeah, I didn't use anything like that for neither one of my shows this year or last year. So, you know,
does finding out that, I mean, this is so much more prominent than probably we both of us either thought in this industry, does it change your thoughts really on the industry as a whole, or is it still something where you're just like, okay, maybe, like, obviously we need to, that industry needs to change and people need to do stuff, but did it change your opinion at all on just the industry as a whole, knowing that some people are like not being forced to do it, but I mean they kind of have to in order to get that look that is presented to the judges that they want to get the placings?
yeah, I mean, I kind of already knew that the sport was extreme, but I guess this year I just found out just how extreme. So it did make me shake my head a little bit, but you know, no one is pointing a gun to our heads or making a sign on a dotted line saying like this is what you have to do to step on this stage. This is just what people are doing to try to get ahead, to try to win, to try to be number 1, to try to be top 10. And then what it's like a domino effect. Once people figure out this person's trick, then that person that was at top 10's got to find out a way to get even past that. So it's crazy. It's like, how can you have a sport like this without it being extremely just an extreme sport when it comes to health? I feel like, it's unfortunate, but
I mean, that's why I laugh whenever people in the general public think that, all the people do is they just work out and they eat and stuff like that, and that's how they get that look. And
a
it's
lot
like,
more to it than
yeah,
that.
there's a lot more to it than that. We're not even talking about the cardio or the nutrition really aspects of it, but yeah, I just found that, and hopefully the sport does get more coverage and stuff like that, so people are more aware of it because, yeah, it's just a fascinating year that has been going on. But you talked about mixing things up with the posing and doing the lat spread and the back lat spread. That is one thing that women that I have on, especially like figure competitors, struggle with the most. And obviously, like you said, you practiced it before, but was that still any difficulty at all? Because that's one thing where I sort of compare it to like riding a bike, where once you develop it, you can do it verbatim. But I mean, it's one of those things where some people we've heard takes years to really develop being able to separate those lats and spread them.
No, I've always loved those two, and when I basically built my back all last off season to make it a bit bigger, helped me present it better. So for me, it was just a matter of learning how to tweak it more by shifting my elbows and my wrist a certain way and getting used to doing it that way versus little playful way I used to do it. It's basically the technique. I had to learn the technique, and then once you learn that technique, holding it for the period of time you need to hold it for. So it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be, but I also started early doing posing in my prep. I started posing when I was looking not so good, so it's like I started posing early. um so that helped out a lot, you know.
Well, and luckily, there isn't that much. The only other change really is that, yeah, you got to go from a flex, you got to go from your hand open to your fist closed and stuff like that. So luckily, there isn't that much of a difference.
I found for me this year it was a lot easier for me to flex things with a closed fist.
Yeah. I always didn't get that in the first place. I was like, you're not going to get as much of a pop just doing an open fist as you are a closed fist. They're like, oh, it looks more feminine. Or whatever. I was like, not really. I mean, it's just, yeah. I never did get that in the first place.
Whole physique thing, it's for physique. It's cool though. I mean, it makes it different. It makes two things a little bit different.
Yeah. What?
So
Yeah. Obviously, you got to find some differentiating because there is a vast. I mean, those two divisions are more similar than I think any other two divisions in the sport, really. But I mean, going into this off season, other than like putting on some more muscle, what are some other goals that you really are working on? Not just even with your physique, but just with your overall fitness journey in general.
this off season, obviously, I'm going to work on all the things that I basically was told needed to be developed more. Even though I thought some of them were good, but hey, I'll put some more focus on them. That's fine. I'll do that. Um, Overall, like yeah, I want to size up. I also want to stay leaner this time. I don't want as much body fat to come on me like last year. I don't have the surgeries to deal with, so I think I can manage it this time so much better than last year. My clientele already looks like it's going to take a much better turn for me this season than last season. And I think just being able to breathe easy, knowing that I stepped on the bodybuilding stage 3 times. I'm officially a female bodybuilder. That's a huge relief off of me because that was like the biggest like thing going into it. This from last year, this year was like, oh my gosh, is it gonna work for me? Is it gonna work? And even though my placements didn't show that, but my physique did, and the lineups against all the other girls in both the shows, and we'll see what happens at the next one, showed, yeah, I've got what it takes. I can for sure be a bodybuilder. So that was a huge relief. So I think going into this off season for me is going to be a lot less stressful. I'm going to be able to have room to breathe a little bit more, take it easy, um, focus on some of my clients because I have one all the way up until December 17th that has a national show. So this is going to be fun. And then, of course, for me, I have a very short off season this year because I'm going to try to get ready early. I want to I want to shoot for New York right off the bat early.
So you're trying to make it basically impossible for them to not give you a good placing, really, where you're just going to be like, okay,
I
yeah.
try hardest. I'm really going to try. I'm going to make changes on some of the things that, were mentioned. I'm going to keep working on my back. I'm going to try to get more dense. I'm not going to try to turn into a behemoth and come in huge. I mean, you need more time to do that anyway. But what I will say is, from what I did last year with all the obstacles, okay, and everything I dealt with, I feel quite confident that I can put on another 4 pounds of muscle. I do feel confident, which would mean that my new, like after leaning down to the leanest I got this year, would be my stage weight for about nearly being 5'8" would be about 164, 165 ish. So
I hey, well, in a year from now, we'll see how that goes. But I mean, we didn't talk about the surgeries yet. What were your surgeries, and I mean, how did that? I mean, obviously, it's going to affect you, but how did you deal with that mentally, like having to take time off of working out?
it made me, first off, it just made me very nervous because I'm like, how much time am I going to lose from not being able to train legs? One of the most important things I need for bodybuilding. So I was very nervous about that. But yeah, basically the left was the worst. And then the right had a patella issue because of stress being put on it from the issues with the other one. So the right was minor, thank goodness, but that's still one surgery because they did it separately. Then I went in for the left twice. So that was like the third time was that second left surgery, which I wasn't expecting. We didn't think would have to go in again. So I had already started prep. So I lost 3 weeks of my prep having to do that. So that was unfortunate, which is why I missed out on 2 shows I really, really wanted to do, which was my plan was to do the Linda Murray Norfolk and then go right into the Chicago, skip Tampa, and go into Savannah. That was my original plan.
Which,
But
yeah, injuries, I mean, unfortunately, they're a part of the sport. But I mean, I've said this before to people on the show, but when you're a bodybuilder, I mean, you stand out in a crowd. I mean, you're sort of like a mini celebrity. Like if you were to walk out dressed the way that you are right now on the street, you're gonna get looks just because it's something where people are just like, oh wow, that's
going on,
interesting. Yeah, so what has that experience been like for you as over your career? Because I don't think I asked you this last time. What has that been like for you, just sort of dealing with the fact that I mean, you are getting extra attention than you would, just being an average Joe.
it's nice. I mean, I've always kind of like, because I did pageants before this and I modeled and did stuff like that. So like the attention, I to me, I still feel normal. Like no matter what, if I even if I become Miss Olympia someday, I'm still going to remember where I came from, and I'm still going to be like this. That's not going to change anything. But I think one thing for sure was I used to try to sometimes hide my physique in the spring and summer when I was kind of coming into my, peak conditioning because I was thinking like, well, people are going to look at me weird or think this or think that. You got the negative like thought process of what they might be thinking because of things that some people like to say about us female bodybuilders. But for some odd reason, when I crossed into bodybuilding, I don't know what it was, but something just clicked. And I decided that I didn't care what people thought. I needed to present and be proud of the hard work that I had put into this body. And I stopped covering myself all the time when I would go out and about on little occasions. And I basically wore my own skin. And I said, you know what? They can either like it, love it, or hate it. But this is me. And it worked because apparently I'm feminine enough that I pull it off and nobody questions it. And I think that most people either, they're like, that's cool, that's great, not something I would want to do, or they're really impressed by it. I was walking for my birthday. I think we went to Cedar Point, and I didn't even know these kids from Adam's House Cat, right? And so they just walked up to me and they're just like, "Can we each get a picture of you?" I don't know who they were, but I was just like, "That's so sweet that they actually wanted to get a picture of me." You know? So I feel like because what we're doing in the sport and how big it's getting and people that are talking about it like you and other YouTubers and the coverage that we're getting in Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it is starting to become a much more accepted thing for women. That is what I'm starting to feel and see, especially with bodybuilding coming back. It seems to be becoming a lot more accepted.
Well, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I love that. Had bodybuilding not come back like it did like a few years ago, where do you think you would be currently at right now? Do you think that you would just have to you would basically have to force yourself to tone down then to get in for the physique standards really?
I wouldn't have had to tone down necessarily. What I would have had to do was maintain whatever I had going on last year and keep it that size. We couldn't size up anymore. I'd have to find a way to not grow in the off season and keep things harder, tighter, smaller, streamlined. Yeah, because I basically there's no way I couldn't have gotten any bigger from last year. The only reason why they were liking a bigger look in women's physique is because bodybuilding had left. So the bodybuilders had to come down a little bit, and then the physique girls had to come up a little bit to meet in the middle. But because it came back, they started to make the transition to let's get physique back where we want it. So, like, I was the oddball out last year.
Absolutely. I mean, with sleep being the most important thing, we talked about this last time, but has your sleep schedule changed at all? Because I mean, just for me, even during this pandemic, I mean, I have nights where I get, like 4 hours sleep and then the next night I'll get like 10, but it's just, for me, it's never ending just because I'm that type of hyper person. But for you, did your sleep change at all during this last off season?
This I slept very good during the off season, but this year about 5 weeks, maybe even four, heading towards Savannah. No, Tampa. It was the first show. It overlapped into Savannah, but it got better. I suffered the most severe sleep insomnia I have in my career yet. Now, each year I've gotten it a little bit, but not to this extent. I mean, it scared me. I literally had to go to my doctor and address the situation 3 times. And I not only was I dealing with severe sleep insomnia, I was dealing with some low glycemia issues too. And one of the medications that they gave me to sleep, amongst the other stuff that I have to take, fat burning supplements and my diet, I woke up twice this year in a hypoglycemic, having some type of episode where I literally thought I was about to black out and we were going to have to call 911 because I did not know what was happening. But it was bad. Oh God, I do not ever want to feel like that again. So those are my two scares. The sleeping has definitely fixed itself. I can sleep great now. I'm even taking naps. A lot of it, I think, has to do with some anxiety being relieved off of me. That and I'm not grinding so hard, so my body's able to like get a little bit of a relief. So, and I'm eating a little bit more carbs, so that helps. So I think all those three things help me get back on my regular sleep pattern.
How do you mentally push yourself through those periods of insomnia? Because for me, if I get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, I know I'm not doing anything physical that day just because I'm not going to be able to. How do you do that? Because to me, that seems almost impossible.
It's hard, but it's like on a day-to-day schedule and there's certain things you got to get done. You got to find a way to get it done and you're like maybe tonight will be better. I'll take something to try to put myself to sleep, but I still had to get my cardio in. I still had to get my training in. And of course, once I took my little fat burner in the morning, gave me a nice little let's go, and then of course a pre-workout before my work training. I mean, your energy levels splurge right back into normality until it's all done and then you're like, wow, I'm feeling it. I'm tired now. But for me to be honest, on those days that I only got 2 hours or 3 hours, I did notice a slight decline in my effort, in my cardio, and in my training. Still got it all in, but slight decline in effort and in intensity, I would say for sure.
Which don't work because if you said that there wasn't a decline, I'd be like, okay, what's wrong with her? We need to like do studies on her basically and get, yeah. For the safety of the public, I never take pre-workout because I'm already hyper enough as it is. So I don't know. I mean, for the safety, I don't want to. Yeah, for anyone's like, why don't you ever take pre-workout? I was like, it's because it's for your safety. Okay, I don't know what's gonna happen if this brain gets even more wired up and more going than it already is. So it's uncharted territory. So if I ever get in a stressful situation, who knows? That might be what I end up doing. But I mean, yeah, it's just yeah, all this stuff that's been going on, I don't even know really where to begin, but yeah, it's just what's been going on in your life too and all that stuff. I mean, it's incredible that you still got this look even after, all those surgeries and whatnot and yeah.
Happy. I busted my butt. There were times I was wondering, is this going to happen for me? It just took a little longer and I just had to really I just had to keep at it. I had to keep chipping at the wood. And finally, it all like came together as it had been before the previous year before. And I was just so relieved at that because there were times I was like, seriously, like, am I in trouble? Is this going to work this year? Am I actually going to be able to make it to a stage?
Well, and I mean, obviously the last time we talked there wasn't a vaccine out and things were a little bit different, but you find that it's a lot easier now with like your personal training. You got a lot more clients now that people are vaccinated and seem to be going out more. Do you find that it's, a lot busier for you and it's a lot more better for you at least business-wise?
I don't know. It seems kind of the same to me because in Ohio, the gyms, no matter what was going on, after they shut us down one time and it got appealed and fought pretty hard, they never shut the gyms back down again. The only thing is certain ones were making you walk in with a mask and walk back out with a mask. So people were still going, still wanted to be fit. Maybe it's going to be a little busier this season because after so many people may have been, just lackadaisical, not doing as much due to all this whole COVID stretch thing. Maybe they're just now starting to come out of the woodwork. Maybe they did get vaccinated. Maybe they had COVID already and they're fine. Um, Maybe they're at this point where they're tired of living concealed life and they're like, I've got to get me back again. I've got to start training again. I've got to do this. Cuz one of my clients, that's kind of like where he's at. I just had to get back into the gym. I couldn't not work out anymore. I think he stopped kind of working out a little bit before the COVID happened though, but during the COVID, he definitely wasn't get going back. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is going to have a little bit of an increase for people that are wanting to get back in shape, get fit. Maybe do a show next year. It maybe I don't know.
Well, and here's the $1 million question that every guy's going to be asking me. What do you train for arms, and how do you plan on getting your arms to grow? Because that was the one thing that they said that you need to grow a little bit more. Because trust me, if you just release like an arm guide, you'd make probably like $1 million. Because every guy and their brother's like, but what are you doing for your arms? So how do you plan on at least getting them bigger? Because it's like I didn't even know that they could get any bigger than they are right now.
I should do an ebook
You
on
should.
arms.
You should.
Ar- Here's been my trick for arms, and I kid you not. I've always been that. I'm still a believer in the back and bicep workout. A lot of people switch that up and they're like, I don't put biceps or back anymore. I do a push with a push and a pull with a pull, or a push and a pull. And I'm still on that old, no, I'm going to do back and buys together. And I've had for all this time, and they still get slightly bigger each year. Another thing is, I believe it or not, I don't push extreme amounts of weight on them. I've slowly upped the weight each year in the off season. I notice I can curl a tiny bit more for a certain amount of reps. But for me, I have to say, for me and my biceps, it's been building them with volume. So I'm saying moderate weight and just reps, 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 reps. That seems what has done the trick for me. So instead of like super heavy weight in the off season, for me, it's just been like straight through volumized training on them.
And genetics to everyone. Let's not lie. I mean, that's a big part of it to everyone. You're not gonna have some random Joe Schmo who's gonna get huge arms from. But I mean, like obviously, yeah, arms are probably one of the body parts that you don't really push heavy weight. But are there any body parts that you do really just go for the heavy lifts on in your off season?
Yeah, things that are just non-existent. Like I used to have no calves and now I do. I'm really pressed heavy on those. Really needed to, really wanted to develop them, and my calves were better than they ever had been this year, and I was very proud of that. They were almost balanced too, like with the surgeries and everything, because I never had balanced calves. So they were like this close. Um, Also, I like to put some. I'm gonna keep lifting pretty heavy on the back, and I want even more shoulder development. So we'll go back to pushing some pretty heavy weights on the shoulders. Not so much on the chest. I might hit some heavy here and there, but it won't be a major focus because the chest develops on its own
Oh, I mean,
pretty easy.
she's still got striations on striations, everyone. So I mean, that's just yeah. Look at that. That is just absolutely yeah. It doesn't need that much more work, everyone. I mean, yeah, maybe just a couple
So yeah,
maybe just a couple push ups every day. Who knows?
I do push a little heavy weight on it, but not as much as I'm going to do for shoulders, not as much as I'm going to do for back and for teardrops, and actually hams too, because I want to improve my hamstrings. So I'll be pushing some pretty major heavy weights in those areas in the off season for sure.
That's awesome. And I mean, this is one of the final questions, and I ask this every time, but with what's been happening with you, this question becomes even more interesting for me to ask. If there was one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
I just want them to try as hard as they could to remember that femininity is it needs to play a huge role in the especially in the women's more muscular categories. I wish there was a clause where the judges literally had to look at that and be like, okay, because that is what's going to keep bodybuilding around, and that's what we need, and that's also what's going to help not having women coming in overly conditioned. Just keeping that femininity ideally in the picture, a feminine look. Obviously, if you're feminine, you're not going to have an overly striated glute, are you? You know, you're not going to be taking things that are going to make you look extremely crazy in the face. Your hair won't fall out. it's one little small thing that we could start focusing on in the criteria, and I think it would change a lot. I do. So maybe someday, maybe that'll get worked in there.
I do think each judge should have to like read a thing before a show going, it's remember, it's female bodybuilding and have the female in all capital letters basically, and then just yeah, because yeah, that is a part of it where it's just I mean, obviously no matter what, I mean the final look that everyone gets for the big bodybuilding shows, it's still amazing and they do all the hard work and stuff like that. But yeah, some people do tend to forget that, and I think the judges do as well. And yeah, if anything could really, impact more, I think is yeah, just realizing that, hey, you need to keep this feminine because otherwise it's like then why even have the female bodybuilding part of it anyway. Just I mean yeah, that's just one of my opinions. Obviously I've never competed in bodybuilding, so everyone take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, it's one thing that I'd like to see change personally as well because it's
It meant a lot. It means everything in a bikini and in wellness. So it should have a little bit of meaning in bodybuilding 100%. You see it play a little bit of a role in physique a little bit more, but sometimes like it depending on a show, like sometimes it's not even in the question. So,
here's what you should do for your next show: compete as a bikini competitor and just go on stage and do the bikini girl poses and just see how they judge you. That would be the most hilarious thing ever. I've always said just for laughs, someone like an Andrea Shaw or someone, she just go as a bikini girl for one of the shows and just go on stage and do those. That would be actually pretty funny. But yeah, it's yeah.
she would have a better chance going into men's open. She could probably give them a run for
Oh
their
my
money.
god, yeah, I had her on the podcast, and that was the one where I was like, "Geez, I need a new camera lens." Good God, yeah, she is outstanding, and I'm looking forward to talking to her again. But yeah, and when we do talk to you a year from now, I didn't say if, I said when because you're a great guest and I love having you on. Where would you like to be at just in your bodybuilding journey?
Well, hopefully next year, maybe I'll get a shot to the Olympia then. Maybe. But in other words, other than that, I am going to work very, very hard from now till even then. I really want to grow my um, media. I want to grow my social media. I want to grow it like I want it triple where it's at. Because I think that there's room for me in the industry to be, you know, a fitness bodybuilding sensation. And a lot of people dig my look. And I also get a lot of women that tell me, I love the way you look. And it makes me feel like it's okay to train and develop some serious muscle because you're not going to lose femininity when you do it right. Like, I'm a nice living example of that for them to see that you can still develop a nice feminine, muscularly impressive physique. So that means a lot to me, because I want them to know that that's possible. I want men to think like a female can be super attractive and desirable with some muscle on them and still be just as woman. It's very important to me. That's a huge platform in this industry that I want to definitely make sure is understood. so, so like long run, that's what I'm going to be working on.
And again, in my unbiased opinion, I do think you are almost the perfect example of, what a female bodybuilder should look like and just all the stuff that go on. I'm just going to end it with a compliment there just because, yeah, she is everyone. I mean, I've had guests on who, yeah, I'm not going to get into it on the podcast because I don't want to, say anything about anyone, but, yeah, for me, you are like near close to like like perfect person of what it should look. So yeah, anyone that tells me about bodybuilding, oh yeah, they're just manly and stuff like, I'll just tell them, yeah, go look at her Instagram page. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I was like, we found one, okay? We found one that doesn't. So no, I'm just kidding. But it's yeah, I mean, yeah, you. So yeah, just obviously just keep doing what you're doing and keep with that message and anything that I can do to help you with your media or anything like that. I'm more than happy to help with. Give you a shout out whenever. But yeah, everyone. And again, lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Well, I just want to thank, once again, all of those that supported me and donated to my cause and helped me this year get on stage with finances. Thank you guys. You know who you are. They always know who they are. You never want me to say names. And then, of course, just my main coach that I used this year, me and him, we just carried this year. I did a lot of it at home by myself, but he was at every show. And that's Sean Stanridge, aka Mr. Wicked, and Wicked Naturals Nutritions. Best nutrition that I know of because They don't put any chemicals in anything. So, good clean, supplements.
That is huge. So, and again, you guys, we cannot thank her enough for coming on the show and just sharing what's been going on with her. And, obviously everyone go and give her a follow. And again, buyer beware. You will get inspired, get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and, get in shape. But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Alright.